name is Buzz Walker Teach, and I'm an American citizen now living in Southeast Asia since 1995. I'm a teacher, art educator in art colleges in Malaysia and Singapore. I'm also a sketcher, an illustrator, and I would say generally an artist as well in my time away from the classroom. I was born and raised in the Chicago area, studied in Chicago, the city of Chicago in the U.S. in the late 1960s, and graduated from an art college there, and gradually became I moved to California in 1971, where I started working as a designer and illustrator, did a little bit of photography, got involved in the arts anyway, in the San Francisco and Sacramento areas of California. So between around 1976 to 1995, I was in California working as a commercial designer and illustrator with some international accounts as well as local accounts in terms of design and mainly illustration work at that stage. For another almost 15 years worked as a designer and illustrator, but I always had a feeling that I wanted to come back over this way. In 1995, I decided to take the big leap. I was in my late 40s, but I thought, I want to see more of the world. And I came to Indonesia because I happened to know some Indonesian people at that time. Stayed for about a year in Jakarta, did a little bit of freelance work as a designer and illustrator. Gradually came to Singapore and worked for a short time. And then in 1996, in December of 96, I traveled up to Penang and by accident walked into an arts college, small arts college in Penang to look around. And after talking with some of the people that were part of the teaching staff, I was offered a teaching job, and that started my design teaching career. So I started teaching at a small college called Intech College in Penang in 1990, actually January of 97. I've been a teacher since then, from 97 till the present, 2014, teaching in Malaysia schools. I taught in KL for a while as well, and a total of almost 11 years with the Raffles Design Group in Singapore, in Manila, and now in Johor Bahru. While the teaching is really rewarding and I enjoy being in the classroom and teaching design courses, I'm still an artist at heart, and my sketching really started to take off when I was in Penang in 97 to 2000. And I began sketching more on the streets and going out into the temples and along the areas of the beaches and the old city parts and drawing live. And that's kept going since then, and even to the point of the joining an artist group in Singapore in 2010 that was an organized group called the Urban Sketchers of Singapore. And I'm still quite active with them. I join them quite a bit. And I always say sort of jokingly, drawing is what keeps me sane, but it is. It's become a very important part of my life is being a sketcher. People sometimes will say to me if they see me drawing on the street, well, why don't you take a photograph of this old building or this hawker center? And we say as sketchers that there's something that happens when you actually sit in front of the object and you draw it. You become more familiar with it. You learn about it. You see little nuances, little things about it, or the person or whatever you're doing that you wouldn't normally notice. Or a photograph might capture it, but not necessarily you really wouldn't see it. But I think one of the important things is that we can do a drawing and we remember the moment. I can remember things that took place drawing 15 to 17 years ago. One particular one was that I was in Central Java in Indonesia in around 1998, and I was drawing some old temples, Prambanan temples. And The reason I can remember it because I was, first of all, enjoying the sketching of that afternoon. Suddenly, a rainstorm came in quite fast, tropical rainstorm. And as the rain started coming down, I dashed inside this temple, and I realized I was the only one there. There had been some other tour people, but they left, jumped in the tour guide bus and took off. And suddenly here I am inside this hundreds of years old temple, and the rain is pouring down outside. And the memory of it is the sense that, for a while I sort of thought, oh my gosh, where am I? In this type of place. But then I sensed that it was a really special feeling, and it's something that you couldn't plan ahead to do. When I go out sketching, I take several different types of sketchbooks. I have a number of supplies of different types of pens. I work with colored pencil work as well. I have, on a normal Saturday or Sunday, I might carry a couple of different sizes of sketchbooks. One is that I like to carry a small book that's made by Moleskine, which actually allows me to do small artworks like this that I could quickly draw. I also take a little more formal sketchbooks. This one is a little bit larger than an A4 size, and here I spend a little bit more time. These drawings, this one happens to be the old historic Wong Ah Fook mansion in Johor, which sadly was torn down in the 1st of May. Probably the oldest house left in Johor at the time. I spent about 3+ hours drawing it. So I draw with my ink lines, and I'll put some values of shading in. If I'm working in color, I use colored pencil, some watercolor wash. I'll vary the mediums a little bit. My artwork tends to be pretty representational, pretty realistic, where other people in our groups that I join might be more watercolor, painterly style, even some people that are quite abstract almost to the way they draw. For me, this is the style I like. This is probably because of my time as an illustrator that I tend to look at things and I want to draw them in the proportion as I see them. This was at an antique auto show in Singapore last year. In 2011, the Singapore Urban Sketchers produced a book of works of 33 different sketchers that were regulars. And I was very fortunate and honored to be in the book, along with a lot of the other sketchers of the area. This happens to be a drawing of mine. It's an image from the Sultan Mosque in Singapore. And what we did is we went around and many different people's different styles of art published in the book. Temples, street scenes, hawker centers, and again, lots of different watercolors and talking about the images and the places they went to, what we saw. Drawing it should be fun. It should be something that you want to do and you're inspired. You don't have to do it every day. Some people do. Maybe you only draw once a week. If it's something you love and you find that it's a passion that you can make your life better, and I think then that's a good asset that comes out of being a sketcher or a drawer. Even when I draw by myself, it's a meditation that I enjoy, and it's relaxing. And I think most people would find that too. You sit down and you have to deal with the heat sometimes, and maybe noise, and sometimes once in a while obnoxious people that come by. Most of the time not. People pretty much are really supportive and want to talk to you on the streets. But I think it's about the experience and what you get from that. And that's as much of an enjoyment to me as what the end result is of what the drawing is at the end.